My name is Olivia Bennett. I'm 35 years old, and for most of my life, I believed that love could survive anything. I was wrong, because sometimes the people who smile at your wedding are secretly waiting for your marriage to fail. Sometimes the person who calls you daughter is the very person trying to destroy your life. And sometimes the truth stays buried for years, until one careless sentence changes everything. The day my mother-in-law looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Losing you is the best thing that ever happened to my son," I thought my heart had finally broken beyond repair. What I didn't know was that within a few weeks, a secret would come crashing into the open. A secret so shocking that even my husband couldn't believe it. A secret that would expose years of manipulation, lies, and betrayal. And when the truth finally came out, nobody was prepared for what happened next, not even me. Welcome back to Inspired Real Events, where ordinary people meet impossible family and the quiet ones learn the loudest lessons. If betrayal, gratitude, and slow burn justice are your thing, you're in the right place. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from, and be sure to subscribe. People always told me I looked like I had everything figured out. The successful career, the beautiful house, the loving husband, the picture-perfect marriage. From the outside, they weren't wrong. I worked as a marketing director for a healthcare company in Seattle. My husband, Ethan Bennett, owned a growing architecture firm. Together, we'd built a life that seemed almost too good to be true. A white house with blue shutters, fresh flowers on the porch, weekend coffee dates, movie nights, holiday traditions. The kind of life people posted on social media and secretly wished they had. But there was one problem, one person who never seemed happy no matter what I did. My mother-in-law, Margaret Bennett. Even saying her name still makes my stomach twist. When Ethan and I first started dating, I tried so hard to win her over. I brought homemade desserts to family dinners. I remembered her birthday. I helped organize family gatherings. I even spent 3 weekends helping her redecorate her living room. Every time I thought we were making progress, she'd find a new reason to dislike me. "Oh, that's an interesting outfit choice. Oh, Ethan never used to eat so much takeout. Oh, I suppose some women focus more on careers than family." The words sounded harmless, almost polite, but they always carried a sting, like tiny paper cuts, one by one, until eventually you realize you're bleeding. Ethan never noticed. Or maybe he didn't want to. "That's just Mom," he'd say. "She doesn't mean anything by it." I wanted to believe him, I really did, because I loved him more than I had ever loved anyone. The first 5 years of our marriage were mostly happy. There were difficult moments, arguments, stress, financial worries, but nothing unusual, nothing that couldn't be worked through. At least that's what I thought. Then everything changed. It started with a phone call. A simple phone call on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting in my office reviewing a presentation when my phone lit up. Margaret, my mother-in-law, almost never called me directly. I stared at the screen. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail. Instead, I answered. "Hello." There was silence, then a shaky breath. "Olivia." Something sounded wrong, very wrong. "Margaret, are you okay?" Another pause, then she spoke. "I need to see you." The words came out strained, almost frightened. My heart began pounding. "What's happened?" "It's not something I can discuss over the phone." The knot in my stomach tightened. "Are you sick?" "No." "Is Ethan okay?" A longer silence. Then she whispered, "Please just meet me." The call ended. I sat frozen in my chair. Rain tapped against the office windows. My hands suddenly felt cold. For years, Margaret had treated me like an unwanted guest in her family. Now she sounded terrified. By 5 o'clock, I was driving across town toward her house. The sky was dark. Heavy clouds hung overhead. The entire drive felt wrong somehow, like the beginning of a nightmare. I kept trying to convince myself I was overreacting. Maybe she needed help with something. Maybe a family issue had come up. Maybe my thoughts stopped the second I pulled into her driveway. Margaret was sitting alone on the porch, waiting. She looked different, older, smaller, as if years had been added to her face overnight. The sight unsettled me. I climbed out of the car. "Margaret." She stood immediately. Her eyes were red. Had she been crying? For a moment, she simply stared at me. Then she said something I never expected to hear. "Olivia, I owe you an apology." I nearly laughed, not because it was funny, because it was impossible. An apology from Margaret Bennett, the woman who had spent years criticizing me, years making me feel like I wasn't good enough. My brain struggled to process it. "What?" She swallowed. Tears filled her eyes. "I've done terrible things." The air suddenly felt heavier. "What are you talking about?" She looked toward the street as if checking whether someone was watching. Then she whispered, "You need to know the truth." Every instinct in my body screamed that something was wrong, terribly wrong. A cold chill raced down my spine. What truth? Margaret's face crumpled. The next words barely escaped her lips. The reason Ethan almost left you 3 years ago. My heart stopped. 3 years ago, the worst period of our marriage. The months when Ethan suddenly became distant, secretive, cold, the months that nearly ended everything. A period we'd somehow survived, or so I thought. Margaret looked directly into my eyes, and what she said next shattered my world. It wasn't an accident. The blood drained from my face. Rain began falling harder. The sound filled the silence between us. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't move, because deep down, I already knew whatever came next would change everything. And for the first time in my life, I was afraid of the truth. I stood there on Margaret's porch, staring at the woman who had spent years making me feel like I didn't belong. The same woman who had smiled at family dinners while quietly judging every choice I made. The same woman who once told me, Ethan deserves someone who understands his priorities. I remembered that moment. I remembered standing in my kitchen after she left, pretending her words didn't hurt. But they did. They stayed with me. And now she was telling me there was a reason behind everything. A reason she had hidden for years. My voice trembled. What do you mean it wasn't an accident? Margaret looked down. Her hands were shaking. For the first time since I met her, she didn't look powerful. She looked scared. I need you to understand something, Olivia. She wiped her eyes. I never hated you because you weren't good enough. I frowned. Then why? Her lips pressed together. Because I was afraid. I almost couldn't believe what I was hearing. Afraid of me? Margaret, you've spent years making me feel like I ruined your son's life. A tear rolled down her cheek. I know. The silence that followed felt painful, like all the years of anger and confusion were sitting between us. Then she walked inside. Come in, there's something you need to see. I hesitated. Every part of me wanted to leave, to get back in my car, to pretend this conversation never happened. But something inside me knew I couldn't walk away, not anymore. I followed her inside. Her house smelled exactly the same. Lavender candles, old books, fresh coffee, the same place where I had spent countless holidays trying to earn her approval. She walked toward a small wooden cabinet near the living room. She opened a drawer, then another. Finally, she pulled out a small envelope. It looked old, worn, like it had been hidden away for years. She handed it to me. This is why I need you to forgive me. I looked at the envelope. My name was written on the front, my full name, Olivia Bennett. My hands went cold. Why is my name on this? Margaret didn't answer. She just looked away. I slowly opened it. Inside was a letter I had never seen before. The handwriting was unfamiliar. I started reading. Dear Olivia, if you are reading this, then Margaret finally told you the truth. My heartbeat changed. I looked up. Who wrote this? Margaret whispered. Your father. Everything inside me froze. My father had been gone for almost 10 years. He was the one person who always believed in me. The one person who told me I was stronger than I realized. My eyes moved back to the paper. Your father knew something about Ethan before you married him. I stopped breathing. What? I kept reading. He tried to warn you, but I stopped him. The room suddenly felt smaller. The walls felt like they were closing in. I looked at Margaret. You stopped my father, she started crying. I made a mistake. A mistake, my voice rose. You kept something from me about my own marriage. She covered her face. I thought I was protecting my son. My hands shook. Protecting him from what? Margaret didn't answer immediately, and that scared me more than anything, because whatever she was about to say, she knew it would break me. Finally, she whispered, from the truth about why Ethan married you. My heart dropped. The room went silent. For a second, I couldn't hear anything except my own breathing. What are you saying? Margaret looked at me, and the sadness in her eyes terrified me. Olivia, she paused. Ethan didn't tell you everything about your first meeting. I stepped backward. No, she continued. He already knew who you were. A strange feeling moved through my body, confusion, fear, pain. What? She nodded slowly. He didn't just randomly meet you at that coffee shop. My mind raced back. That day, 7 years ago, the rainy afternoon when Ethan spilled coffee on my coat, the way he laughed, the way he apologized, the way we talked for hours, I always thought it was fate. I thought it was the universe bringing two people together, but now, Margaret was telling me it wasn't random. What are you saying? Her voice became quieter. He was looking for you. My heart shattered. The person I loved. The man I built my entire life around. Was there a reason he entered my life? A reason he never told me? I felt tears forming in my eyes. No. Margaret reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Why? My voice cracked. Why would he do that? She looked down. Because of your father. I stared at her. My father, she nodded. Your father and Ethan's father knew each other. I felt dizzy. My father never mentioned that. I know. Why? Margaret took a deep breath. Because they had a secret. The room became completely silent. Then she said the words that changed everything. A secret that could have destroyed both families. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My whole life suddenly felt like a story someone else had written. The marriage I thought was built on love, the family I thought I had. Everything was suddenly a question. Then Margaret reached into the drawer again. She pulled out another photograph. She placed it on the table. I looked down, and my entire body went numb. Because in the photograph, there was my father standing beside Ethan's father, and between them was a little girl. A little girl I had never seen before. On the back of the photo was a handwritten message. Keep her away from the truth. My breath caught. Who is she? Margaret closed her eyes and whispered, that's the secret your husband has been hiding from you. I looked at her. My voice barely came out. Who is the girl? Margaret opened her eyes. And the answer destroyed the last piece of trust I had left. Olivia, she whispered. That girl is connected to Ethan's past. The rain outside became louder, and for the first time, I wondered if the man I loved was actually a stranger, because maybe the biggest lie wasn't what my mother-in-law did. Maybe the biggest lie was the love story I thought was real, and I had no idea. The truth was only beginning. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. I lay in the darkness of my bedroom, staring at the ceiling while the same questions kept replaying inside my head. Who was the girl in that photograph? Why did Ethan know who I was before we met? Why did my father try to warn me? And the question that hurt the most, did my husband ever truly love me? My eyes burned from crying. The worst part wasn't the secret. The worst part was realizing there were pieces of my own life that everyone else knew except me. I had spent 7 years believing my marriage was built on trust. But what if I was the only one being honest? What if I was the only one who didn't know the truth? Around 3:00 in the morning, I finally got out of bed. I walked into the kitchen. The house was silent. The same house where Ethan and I had cooked together. The same kitchen where he used to hug me from behind while I made breakfast. I touched the counter and remembered all those moments. The laughing, the dancing, the promises. Forever, Liv. That was what he used to say. Forever. A small, painful laugh escaped my lips. Funny how a single word can mean everything, until you find out it might have been built on a lie. My phone buzzed. I froze. It was Ethan. Hey, love, are you awake? I stared at the message. Love. That word used to make me smile. Now it felt like a question. I didn't answer. A few seconds later, another message came. Everything okay? I locked my phone because I didn't know how to answer. How do you ask someone you love, did you marry me because of a secret? How do you look into the eyes of the person who holds your heart and wonder if you were ever really the person they chose? The next morning, Ethan walked into the kitchen. He looked exactly the same. The same warm smile, the same messy hair. The same man I had kissed goodbye thousands of times. Morning, beautiful. My chest tightened. I hated that my heart still reacted to him. I hated that after everything I had learned, a part of me still wanted to run into his arms. Morning. He noticed something was wrong. Ethan always knew when I was upset. What happened? I looked at him. For a moment, I almost told him everything. Almost. But then I remembered Margaret's words. He was looking for you. I swallowed. Nothing. His eyebrows lifted. Liv. The way he said my nickname almost broke me. Almost. I said I'm fine. He studied my face. Then he sighed. Okay. But he didn't believe me. Neither did I. Later that afternoon. I went back to Margaret's house. I needed answers, not pieces, not half-truths. The truth. She opened the door before I knocked, like she had been waiting. You came back. I walked inside. I need to know everything. She nodded slowly. You deserve that. I looked at her. Why didn't you tell me before? Her eyes filled with regret. Because I was selfish. The honesty surprised me. She sat down. I was terrified of losing Ethan. I crossed my arms. So you destroyed my trust instead? She looked down. Yes, the answer hurt, but somehow it felt better than another excuse. She took a deep breath. When Ethan was young, his father was involved in a business partnership with your father. I listened carefully. Your fathers were close friends. She paused. But something happened. What? Margaret looked at me. A betrayal. The word hung in the air. What kind of betrayal? She hesitated. Your father discovered something about Ethan's father. My heartbeat increased. What? Money, I frowned. Money, she nodded. There was money missing from the company. I felt confused. My father never talked about any of this, because he didn't want you involved. I looked away. My father had always protected me, even when he was sick. Even when life became difficult, he always told me some storms are meant for adults to face. I never understood what he meant until now. Margaret continued. Your father found evidence. Evidence of what? She looked at me. That Ethan's father had been hiding financial crimes. My eyes widened. Ethan knew. Margaret looked uncomfortable. Not at first. Then what happened? She took another deep breath. After your father died, Ethan discovered the truth. I felt a painful squeeze in my chest. And that's why he found me. Margaret didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her silence was enough. I stood up. No, she looked at me. Olivia. No, my voice cracked. I need you to say it. Tears filled my eyes. Did Ethan marry me because he wanted information about my father's evidence? Margaret started crying, and after a long silence, she whispered, at the beginning. My heart broke. Yes. The room went completely silent. I felt like the ground disappeared beneath me. At the beginning. Those 3 words hurt more than anything, because they meant there was a time. A time when my husband didn't love me. A time when I was just part of a plan. I grabbed my purse. I need to go. Olivia, please. I walked toward the door. Please understand. I stopped. I turned around. What? Margaret looked at me with tears in her eyes. He was supposed to use you. My blood went cold. Supposed to, she nodded. But something happened. I waited. What happened? Her voice broke. He fell in love with you. I stared at her for a moment. I wanted to believe that. I wanted to hold on to those words because if Ethan truly changed, maybe our love was real, maybe. But then Margaret said something that made my heart sink again. That's why I tried to separate you. I froze. What? She looked away. I knew he stopped following the plan. My voice became quiet. You tried to destroy my marriage, she nodded. I thought if I pushed you away, Ethan would finally wake up. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The woman who had spent years hurting me had been fighting a war I didn't even know existed. But why? Why go that far? Then she whispered the answer. Because Ethan wasn't the only one hiding something. I looked at her. What do you mean? Margaret reached into her purse. She pulled out another envelope. This one was thicker. Older, she placed it in my hand. Your father left this for you. My fingers tightened around it. Why didn't I get this before? Her eyes filled with tears. Because Ethan's father took it. My heart stopped. What? She looked at me. And Olivia. A tear rolled down her face. The girl in the photograph. I waited. The girl Ethan was trying to find. She whispered, she's not connected to his past. I stared at her. Then who is she? Margaret looked directly into my eyes. And her answer made my entire body go numb. She's connected to yours. I looked down at the envelope in my hand. My name was written across it, my father's handwriting, a message from the man who was gone, a truth he had carried to his grave. And suddenly, I wasn't afraid of discovering Ethan's secret anymore. I was afraid of discovering my own, because maybe the biggest mystery in my life wasn't why Ethan chose me. Maybe the mystery was who I really was. And the answer was waiting inside that envelope. I held the envelope in my hands for what felt like an eternity, a simple piece of paper, a few words written in my father's handwriting, but somehow, it felt heavier than anything I had ever carried, because my father was gone. And when someone you love dies, you spend years wishing for one more conversation, one more hug, one more chance to ask the questions you never thought to ask. I had spent 10 years missing him, and now, somehow, he had left me one final conversation. A conversation he knew I would only have after he was gone. My fingers trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter. The paper was old. The ink had faded slightly. But the first line made my heart stop. Dear Olivia, if you are reading this, then something happened that I prayed would never happen. I swallowed hard. My vision blurred. I continued. My beautiful daughter, if there is one thing I want you to know, it is this. A tear rolled down my cheek. I never kept secrets from you because I didn't trust you. I kept them because I was trying to protect you. I closed my eyes. My father always said those words, protect you. I used to think it meant protecting me from the world. I never realized it meant protecting me from the truth. I kept reading. There is something about our family history that you deserve to know. My heartbeat became louder. When you were born, I thought I was the luckiest man alive. Your mother and I loved you more than anything. I smiled sadly. My mother died when I was young. Most of my childhood memories were just my father and me. He was my everything. Then the next sentence changed my entire understanding of my past. But Olivia, before you were born, there was another child. I froze. Another child. I read the sentence again. My hands went cold. Your mother and I had a daughter before you. I stopped breathing. A daughter. My parents had another child. A sister. A million questions exploded in my mind. Why didn't I know? Why had nobody told me? The letter continued. Her name was Amelia. The name felt strange, yet somehow familiar. Amelia, the little girl in the photograph. My eyes widened. No, it couldn't be. I kept reading. Amelia was taken from us when she was very young. My heart shattered. Taken? What does that mean? I whispered. I looked at Margaret. She was sitting silently across from me. Her face told me she already knew. Looked back at the letter. My biggest regret in life was not being able to bring her home. My hands began shaking. My sister was alive, somewhere. After all these years, the letter continued. I spent my life searching for answers. Then another line. And the person who knew the truth was Richard Bennett. Ethan's father. My stomach dropped. I looked at Margaret. Richard knew, she nodded slowly. Yes. Why? Her eyes filled with sadness. Because he was there. My chest tightened. What do you mean? Margaret looked down. Richard was involved in what happened to Amelia. The room went silent, the kind of silence that hurts. I felt anger rising. My father spent his whole life searching for his daughter. My voice cracked. And Ethan's father knew, Margaret nodded. I should have told you years ago. I laughed softly, but there was no happiness in it, a painful, broken laugh. Everyone knew something about my life except me. Margaret looked ashamed. You're right. I wiped my tears. No. I looked at her. I need the whole truth. She nodded. I'll tell you. I sat down because I knew I couldn't leave, not anymore. Margaret took a deep breath. Years ago, Richard and your father were business partners. I nodded. Your father discovered Richard was hiding money. The same money, yes, she continued. But there was something worse. What? Richard had been using company money to cover another secret. My heart pounded. What secret? Margaret looked at me. He had a daughter. I frowned. Amelia, she shook her head. No, I felt confused. Then who? Her voice became quiet. He had a child with another woman. My eyes widened. Wait, I tried to understand. Are you saying Amelia wasn't my father's daughter? Margaret looked at me with tears. No, Olivia, she whispered. Amelia was your father's daughter. I felt dizzy. Then what does Richard have to do with her? Margaret reached for another document. He knew where Amelia was. My breath caught. All these years. She nodded. All these years. Anger burned through me. Why didn't he tell my father? Margaret's voice broke. Because Richard was afraid. Afraid of what? She looked at me. Afraid your father would expose everything. The pieces were falling together, the betrayal, the secrets, the missing money, my sister, Ethan, my entire marriage, everything was connected. Then Margaret said something that made my heart stop. Olivia, I looked at her. There's something else. I almost laughed, something else. How could there possibly be anything else? But there always was. Margaret pulled out a small box. She placed it on the table. I found this after Richard died. I opened it. Inside was a necklace, a tiny silver necklace with a heart pendant. I recognized it instantly because I had one exactly like it. My hand flew to my neck, the necklace I had worn since childhood. The necklace my father told me was a gift from my mother. My voice shook. Why does she have the same necklace? Margaret looked at me, and the answer destroyed me. Because your father gave one to each of his daughters. I stared at her. My whole body went numb. Each of his daughters, 2 necklaces, 2 sisters, one missing, one standing there. Suddenly the photograph made sense. The little girl wasn't just connected to my past. She was my past. She was my family. I looked at the envelope again. There was one final page, a page I hadn't noticed. I slowly unfolded it. And the first sentence made my heart stop. Olivia, if you ever find Amelia. My breathing became shallow. The next line was written darker, almost like my father pressed the pen harder. Do not trust Ethan. I froze. The room disappeared. My hands dropped. Do not trust Ethan, the man I loved, the man I built my life with, the man who held me every night. My father's final warning was about him. I looked at Margaret. What does this mean? But she didn't answer, because suddenly the front door opened, and a familiar voice came from behind me. Mom! My blood ran cold. Ethan, he was standing there, and he had heard everything. He looked at the letter in my hands, then at my face. And the fear in his eyes told me one thing. He knew about Amelia. He knew about the letter. He knew about the secret. I whispered, Ethan. He didn't speak. He just stared at me. Then he said the words that shattered my heart. Olivia. There's something I've been trying to tell you for years. My tears fell. How long have you known? He looked away, and that was my answer. The truth had finally found me, but now I had to find out how many lies came with it. The room felt frozen, not cold. Frozen, like time itself had stopped because everyone was afraid of what would happen next. Ethan stood near the doorway. The man who had held my hand when I cried. The man who whispered, I love you before every night we went to sleep. The man I trusted more than anyone in this world. And now he was standing in front of me, with secrets written all over his face. I looked at him. Really looked at him, and for the first time in 7 years, I wondered if I ever truly knew him. "Ethan," my voice cracked. "How long have you known?" He didn't answer. That silence hurt more than a confession, because sometimes people don't hurt you with their words. Sometimes they hurt you with the truth they refuse to say. Margaret stood up. "Ethan, you need to tell her everything." His eyes moved toward his mother. A flash of anger crossed his face. "Mom." "No." Her voice was different, stronger. "I have protected you for too long." Ethan looked at me again. His eyes were filled with pain. "Olivia, I can explain." I laughed softly, but it wasn't because anything was funny. It was the kind of laugh that comes when your heart doesn't know whether to break or fight. "Explain what?" I held up the letter. "That my father warned me about you." His face changed. A tiny reaction, but I saw it. "You knew about this letter." He looked down. "Yes." The word hit me like a slap. I stepped back. "How?" He swallowed. "Because my father had it." My chest tightened. "And you?" He looked at me. "I found it after he died." I stared at him. "So you knew my father left me a warning." My voice became quieter. "And you still married me." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "Olivia, please listen to me." "No," my voice shook. 7 years, Ethan." I pointed toward him. 7 years I shared my life with you." My tears started falling. "I slept next to you. I trusted you. I defended you when everyone questioned you." My voice broke. "And you knew something this important." He closed his eyes. "I know." "Why?" The question came out like a whisper. "Why did you do it?" For a moment, Ethan said nothing. Then he walked closer. I immediately stepped back. The pain on his face was something I had never seen before. "I didn't marry you because of a plan." I looked away. "That's what everyone says when they get caught." "No." His voice broke. "Olivia, please." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to, because loving someone doesn't disappear just because they hurt you. The heart doesn't work that way. Your mind can understand betrayal. But your heart remembers every good moment, every smile, every kiss, every promise. Ethan sat down. His hands were shaking. "When I first saw you." He paused. "I knew who you were." My eyes closed. There it was, the truth, the one thing I didn't want to hear. "But you don't understand why." I looked at him. "Then tell me." He took a deep breath. "My father spent years searching for Amelia." The name made my heart ache. "My sister." He nodded. "Yes." He looked down. "He knew your father had hidden evidence against him." "What evidence?" "Proof of everything he had done. The missing money, the lies, the betrayal, everything. And he believed your father left that evidence with Amelia." I frowned. "What?" Ethan nodded. "My father thought Amelia knew where it was." I felt sick. "So he searched for my sister because of money." "At first." The words stopped me. "At first." I looked at him. "What does that mean?" Ethan looked at me with tears in his eyes. "It means my father was obsessed with finding Amelia." "Why?" His voice became quiet. "Because Amelia wasn't just a missing child." My heart raced. "What are you saying?" He looked at Margaret, then back at me. "My father believed Amelia was still alive." The room went silent. My breathing stopped. My sister. Alive. A woman I had spent my entire life thinking was only a memory. Could actually be somewhere in this world. I whispered, "Where is she?" Ethan looked away, and that scared me. "Ethan." He closed his eyes. "I don't know." I stared at him. "You're lying." "I'm not." "Then why won't you look at me?" His eyes finally met mine, and I saw something there, guilt, deep guilt. "I looked for her too." The words shocked me. "You searched for Amelia." He nodded. "Yes." "Why?" He wiped his face. "Because before my father died, he told me something." "What?" Ethan's voice became barely audible. "He told me Amelia was closer than I thought." A chill went through my body. "What does that mean?" Ethan didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his jacket. He pulled out a photograph. My heart stopped. It was another picture, but this one was recent, not old, not faded. A photo taken within the last few years. I grabbed it, and my hands started shaking, because standing in the picture was a woman with my mother's eyes, a woman wearing the same heart necklace, a woman who looked strangely familiar. I looked at Ethan. "Who is this?" His eyes filled with sadness. "Her name is Amelia Parker." I stared at the photograph. "Where is she?" Ethan took a deep breath. "That's the part I was afraid to tell you." My fingers tightened around the photo. "Tell me." He looked at me. "Amelia didn't disappear." A pause. "She was hidden." My heart sank. "By who?" Ethan looked at his mother. Margaret started crying, and then Ethan said the words that destroyed everything I believed. "By someone in my family." The room went silent. I looked at Margaret, then Ethan, then the picture in my hand. My whole life had been built on secrets, but now the biggest question remained. Who hid my sister, and why? Before anyone could answer, my phone started ringing. I looked down. Unknown number, I almost ignored it, but something inside me told me to answer. I pressed the phone to my ear. Hello, for a few seconds. Nothing, then a woman's voice whispered. Olivia! My blood turned cold because I knew that voice, not because I had heard it before, but because it sounded exactly like me. The woman on the other end started crying. I don't know if you remember me. I couldn't speak. Then she said, but I've been looking for you my whole life. My eyes widened. The photograph slipped from my hand. Ethan, I whispered. She's here. A shaky breath came through the phone. Then the woman said the words I had waited my entire life to hear. I'm your sister. And in that moment, everything changed, because the truth I was searching for had finally found me. For a few seconds, nobody moved, nobody breathed. I just stood there holding my phone, listening to the woman on the other end cry, a stranger who somehow knew my name, a stranger who claimed she was my sister. My mind couldn't understand what my heart was already feeling, because there was something about her voice, something familiar, the way she said Olivia. The same softness my mother used to have, the same sadness my father carried. I whispered, Who are you? The woman took a shaky breath. My name is Amelia. My knees almost gave out. I grabbed the edge of the table. Amelia, the name that had haunted my family for decades, the little girl in the photograph, the daughter my father searched for, the person everyone kept secrets about, my sister, alive. Ethan, I looked at him. His face was pale, like he had just watched the impossible happen. Margaret covered her mouth. Tears were falling down her cheeks because she knew this moment would come. I pressed the phone closer. How do you know you're my sister? The woman on the phone cried softly. Because I spent my whole life trying to find you. My heart broke. Where are you? A pause. Then she whispered, only 30 minutes away. The room went completely silent. 30 minutes. My sister had been 30 minutes away from me, and I had never known. How many times had we passed the same streets? How many times had we been in the same city? How many times had life placed us close together without letting us meet? I looked at Ethan. You knew she was alive. It wasn't a question, it was pain. He looked down. I suspected. I felt anger rising. You suspected. My voice shook. Everyone keeps saying they were protecting me. I wiped my tears. But nobody thought I deserved the truth. Ethan stepped forward. Olivia, I was trying to find her before I told you. Why? Because I didn't want to give you hope and then take it away. Stared at him. Do you understand what you took away from me? My voice broke. You took away years. He closed his eyes. I know. No, you don't. The room became quiet. I spent my whole life wondering why my family felt incomplete. A tear fell. I thought it was just because my mother died. I looked at the photograph, but there was another reason. My voice became smaller. I had a sister. Amelia spoke through the phone. Olivia. I froze. Hearing her say my name felt strange, but also right, like some part of me recognized her. I'm sorry. Her voice broke. I know this is a lot. I sat down. My hands were trembling. Tell me everything. A long silence followed. Then Amelia said, when I was a child, I remember a man coming to our house. My heart tightened. What man? My father. I frowned. Your father. She took a breath. Not the father who raised me. The words confused me. What? My whole life. I thought my name was Amelia Parker. A pause. But it wasn't. I looked at Ethan. He looked shocked. Amelia continued. My name was Amelia Bennett. The air disappeared from my lungs. Bennett, the same last name as Ethan, the same family that had been connected to my pain. I looked at Margaret. She was crying. How? Amelia's voice became quiet. Because Richard Bennett took me. My blood ran cold. Richard, Ethan's father, the man my father trusted, the man who knew the truth, the man who took my sister. My hands curled into fists. Why? Amelia started crying. I don't know everything. Her voice shook. But I know he wanted something from your father. The evidence, the money, the secret, everything came back. Did he hurt you? I asked. The silence answered before she did. Not physically, she whispered. But he made sure I forgot where I came from. My heart broke. What do you mean? I grew up believing my real family abandoned me. The pain in her voice was unbearable. He told me my parents didn't want me. I closed my eyes. My father, the man who spent years searching, the man who died believing his daughter was gone, he never abandoned her. He lost her, and someone stole her away. I started crying. Amelia. The name felt natural now. I am so sorry, she cried harder. I always wondered if I had a sister. I covered my mouth. I wondered about you too. For a moment, there were no secrets, no lies. Just two sisters grieving the years they lost. Then Amelia said something that changed everything again. Olivia, yes, I need to tell you why I contacted you now. A strange feeling came over me. What happened? Her voice became fearful. I found something. What? Something Richard hid. Everyone in the room went still. What did you find? A pause. Then she whispered, your father's evidence. My heart started racing. The proof. Yes, the proof that could explain everything. The proof my father died protecting. The proof Ethan's father spent years hiding. Where is it? Amelia hesitated. Before I tell you. I waited. I need to know something. What? Do you still trust Ethan? The question hit me harder than I expected. I looked at my husband, the man I loved, the man who lied, the man who also helped me find the truth. I didn't know the answer, and that scared me. Why are you asking me that? Amelia's voice became softer. Because Richard wasn't the only person who knew about the evidence. My stomach dropped. What are you saying? A pause, then the words came. Someone close to you tried to make sure you never found it. I looked around the room, at Ethan, at Margaret, at the family that had surrounded me with secrets. My voice barely came out. Who? Amelia whispered. Olivia. My heart pounded. The person who tried to stop your father was the same person who tried to stop you. The call ended. I stared at my phone. Nobody spoke, because suddenly, the truth I wanted so badly was becoming more dangerous than the lies, and the worst part, I wasn't sure anymore who I was supposed to fear. The silence after the call didn't feel empty. It felt heavy, like the room had filled with something invisible that pressed against my chest and made it harder to breathe. I stared at my phone long after Amelia's voice disappeared. The last thing she said kept repeating in my head. The person who tried to stop your father was the same person who tried to stop you. My fingers went cold. Slowly, I lifted my eyes. Ethan was still standing in front of me, watching me, waiting. But now he didn't just look guilty. He looked like someone standing on the edge of something he had been avoiding his entire life. Margaret was crying softly in the background, like she already knew this moment would split everything open again. I whispered, who tried to stop my father? Ethan didn't answer immediately. That hesitation, that tiny pause, felt louder than any confession. I don't know what Amelia told you, he said carefully. I laughed once. Sharp, broken. You always say that when you're about to hide something. His jaw tightened. I'm not hiding. Then tell me. I cut him off, my voice shaking now. Why does it feel like every truth in my life has your family's fingerprints on it? The words hit the room like a crack in glass. Margaret flinched. Ethan looked away. And that was enough. I stepped closer. No more silence. No more half-truths. If Amelia found my father's evidence, someone had to hide it. Someone had to erase it from my life. I pointed at him, and I need you to tell me you had nothing to do with that. For a moment, Ethan didn't move. The air felt tight, like it was shrinking around us. Then he said something I didn't expect. I didn't erase anything. My heartbeat slowed for half a second, but only half, because he continued. But I didn't stop it either. The floor beneath me tilted. What does that mean? His voice dropped. It means I was already involved before I understood what was happening. A silence stretched between us, a long, unbearable silence. I felt something inside me shift, not anger, not sadness, something colder, realization. I whispered, so you were part of it. Ethan shook his head quickly. No, then slower, not the way you think. But I wasn't listening anymore, because my mind had already gone somewhere darker. Every memory I had started rearranging itself. The first meeting, the coffee shop, the way he looked at me like he recognized something. The way everything between us felt too intentional, too precise. My voice dropped. You said you were looking for Amelia. He nodded. Yes. But what if, I said slowly, you were looking for something else too? His eyes flickered, just for a second, but I saw it. And that second changed everything. I turned away. I need air. Ethan reached out. Olivia, don't leave like this. But I already walked past him, out of the house. Into the cold night air that felt like it was finally real after hours of suffocating truth. The driveway was quiet. The world outside didn't know my life was collapsing in layers. I sat on the edge of my car. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the door just to stay steady. Then my phone rang again. Unknown number. I didn't want to answer, but I did. Amelia. A breath. Yes. Her voice was softer now, closer somehow. Are you alone? I looked around. I think so. A pause. Then she said, you're not safe in that house. My throat tightened. What are you talking about? I found something in the documents, she whispered, and it connects everything back to the night your father died. My chest went tight. Don't say that. Olivia, her voice broke. I'm not trying to scare you, I'm trying to protect you. I closed my eyes. Protect me from who? Another pause, then she said it. From Ethan's family. My breath stopped. But before I could respond, I heard something on her end. Sound like a door opening, a sudden movement. Her voice changed instantly. Wait, someone is here. Amelia, I sat up sharply. Amelia, what's happening? Static, a crash, then silence. My entire body went cold. Amelia, no answer. I stood up immediately. Amelia, answer me. Still nothing. And then the call disconnected. I stared at the screen. My heartbeat was loud in my ears. Something was wrong. Something had just changed. I didn't think. I got into my car and started driving. No destination felt clear, only urgency. 30 minutes away, that's what she said. 30 minutes could be a lifetime when truth is chasing you. The city lights blurred past me. Every intersection felt like a warning. Every shadow felt like it had meaning. My mind kept repeating one thing: someone is here. By the time I reached the address Amelia had sent earlier, my hands were shaking so badly I almost missed the turn. It was an old apartment building. Quiet. Dim. Almost forgotten by the city. I stepped out of the car slowly, and that's when I saw it. A light on the second floor, still on, still waiting. Like someone wanted me to come. My stomach dropped. I walked inside. The hallway smelled like old paint and silence. Every step I took sounded too loud, too exposed. Room 2B, that was the door. It was slightly open. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. I pushed the door gently. Amelia! No answer. I stepped inside. The apartment was small. Empty. Too empty, but the table in the center wasn't. There was a folder sitting on it, neatly placed. Waiting, my hands trembled as I picked it up. Inside were documents, old records, names, dates, connections I didn't understand yet. And at the very top, a photograph, my father standing next to Ethan's father again. But this time there was something different, something I didn't notice before. A third person in the background, a woman, holding a child. My breath stopped. Because I recognized the child instantly. Me, I stepped back. No, my voice barely came out. The folder slipped slightly in my hands, then I heard it. A slow sound behind me, a door closing. Click, I turned, and Ethan was standing there, wearing the same expression I had seen earlier. But now it wasn't guilt, it was fear and something else, something I had never seen before: resignation. Olivia, he said softly, you weren't supposed to find that yet. My grip tightened on the folder, my voice shook. Amelia called me. His face changed instantly. That was all I needed. Whispered, she's gone, isn't she? Silence. That silence answered everything. And then Ethan finally said the words that shattered what was left of my reality. She didn't disappear, Olivia. A pause. She was taken again. My knees almost gave out. By who? Ethan looked at the folder in my hands, then at me, and said quietly, by the same person who made sure your father never finished telling you the truth. My voice broke. Who? Ethan stepped closer. And for the first time since I met him. He looked like he wasn't my husband anymore. He looked like a man choosing which truth would destroy me less. And he whispered, Margaret. The world stopped. Because suddenly, the woman who called me unwanted, the woman who said I ruined her son, was no longer just my mother-in-law. She was something else entirely. And she was coming. For all of us. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. Margaret. The name echoed inside my head like a bell that wouldn't stop ringing. I looked at Ethan standing in that empty apartment, the folder trembling in my hands, and I felt something inside me break in a way I couldn't repair. No, I whispered. My voice didn't sound real. That's not possible. Ethan didn't move closer. He didn't try to comfort me. He just stood there like he had been carrying this truth for too long and finally ran out of strength to hold it in. You've been lied to your entire life, Olivia, he said quietly. I shook my head. No, she cried. She helped me. She gave me the letter. She controls what you see, Ethan interrupted. His voice sharpened slightly. What you believe, what you feel, she always has. My grip tightened on the folder so hard my fingers hurt. You're saying your own mother kidnapped my sister. A long silence. Then Ethan said, yes. The word hit me like something physical. I stumbled back a step. The room seemed to tilt. I looked around the apartment again, suddenly aware of every shadow, every corner, every sound. She raised Amelia, Ethan continued, his voice low. Not as her daughter, not openly, but she kept her close enough to control what she knew. My mind refused to accept it. No, I repeated, weaker this time. Ethan stepped forward slowly. I didn't understand it when I was younger. I thought my mother was just protective, strict, obsessed with our family name. His jaw tightened. But after my father died, I started finding things he left behind, things he hid from her. My eyes snapped to him. You knew your father was involved in this. Ethan shook his head quickly. No, I knew he was afraid of her. That sentence made my stomach twist. Afraid of his own wife. Ethan nodded once. And he had every reason to be. My hands shook as I flipped through the folder again. Photographs, records, notes written in different handwriting. and in the margin of one page, a sentence circled in red ink. Amelia must never be reunited with Olivia. My breath stopped. Why? I whispered. Ethan didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at me like he was deciding how much more truth I could survive. Then he said, because of what you represent. I frowned. What does that mean? He exhaled slowly. It's not just about Amelia. It never was. My chest tightened. Then what is it about? Ethan looked at the folder, then at me, and said the words that made my skin go cold. It's about inheritance. I blinked. What? He nodded. Your father didn't just uncover corruption, he uncovered ownership disputes tied to millions in assets and hidden transfers connected to both families. My voice cracked. This is about money. Ethan shook his head immediately. No, it's about control. A pause. And you were the only person both sides couldn't control. I felt my stomach drop. That doesn't make sense. It does to her, Ethan said quietly. He walked a step closer. My mother believed if Amelia ever met you again, everything your father tried to protect would come back to life. My head spun. Protect, Ethan hesitated, then added, or destroy. The air in the room felt thinner now, harder to breathe in. I looked down at the photograph again, me as a child. Standing in the background of a moment I had never known existed. A life I had lived without understanding it belonged to something bigger. My voice came out small. So she took Amelia to control me. Ethan didn't answer immediately. Then, yes. My hands went numb. I dropped the folder onto the table. It scattered slightly, pages sliding like broken pieces of a life I didn't recognize anymore. And you? I asked suddenly. My eyes locked onto him. Where do you fit in all of this, Ethan? His expression tightened. That question hit him differently. I saw it. A flicker of guilt, not new guilt, old guilt. I tried to stop it, he said. When? Before we met. I laughed again, but it sounded hollow. You keep saying that. Ethan's voice rose slightly. Because it's true. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration breaking through his control. I met you because I was already trying to pull away from everything she was doing. I didn't want to be part of it anymore. I stepped back. But you were still part of it. Silence, that silence again, the same silence that had followed me through every chapter of my life. I shook my head slowly. I don't know what's real anymore. Ethan's voice softened. Then let me show you. Before I could respond, he walked toward the far corner of the apartment. He bent down and lifted a loose panel in the floor. My eyes widened. You knew this was here, he nodded. My father showed me once. He said if anything ever happened to him, I'd need this. He reached inside, pulled out a small metal box. My heart started beating faster again. What is that? Ethan looked at it for a long moment before answering. The truth she never found. He opened it. Inside were cassette tapes, old recordings, and a small handwritten note. Ethan handed it to me. I read it slowly. If I am gone, play them in order. R.B. Richard Bennett, Ethan's father. My stomach twisted. Ethan held up one of the tapes. This one first. He moved toward an old recorder on a dusty shelf. My body felt frozen. I wanted to stop him. I wanted to run, but I couldn't because something inside me needed to hear it. The machine clicked. A soft static filled the room. Then a voice, a man's voice, calm, controlled, Richard Bennett. If you are listening to this, then Margaret has already taken steps I feared she would. My breath caught. Ethan looked at me. I couldn't look away. The voice continued. She believes she is protecting the family, but what she is really protecting is the truth about what happened the night Amelia was taken. My throat tightened. Then the recording shifted, paper rustling, a sigh, then the words that made everything stop. Amelia was not taken to hide her. A pause. She was taken to protect her. I froze. Ethan's eyes widened slightly. I whispered, protect her from what? The recording answered. From Olivia. The world collapsed in an instant. My knees buckled. Ethan rushed forward, grabbing my arm, but I barely felt it. No, I whispered. No, that's not true. The recording continued, colder now. Olivia Bennett was never meant to know the full inheritance truth. If she did, she would become the target. A pause. And Amelia was used as leverage to ensure silence. I shook my head violently. No, no, no. Tears blurred my vision. Ethan held me steady. Listen, he said urgently, but I couldn't. Because everything inside me was breaking. The voice on the tape finished with something worse. If Margaret ever hears this truth revealed, she will do what she always does. A pause. She will remove the problem. The tape clicked off. Silence, dead silence. I stepped away from Ethan. My voice barely worked. So I'm the problem, Ethan shook his head. No, but his voice didn't sound certain anymore. It sounded afraid. And then a slow creak came from the hallway outside the apartment. Both of us froze. Footsteps, slow, measured, familiar. Ethan whispered, no. The door opened, and Margaret stepped into the room, calm, composed, like she had been standing just outside this truth for years, waiting for the moment it would finally fall apart. Her eyes landed on the recorder, then the folder, then me, and she smiled softly, not warmly, not kindly, just knowingly. "So," she said quietly, "you found it." And in that moment, I realized the most terrifying part wasn't what I had learned. It was that she never looked surprised, because she had been expecting this ending all along. Nobody moved, not me, not Ethan, not even the air. Margaret stood in the doorway like she had been there all along, like this moment didn't surprise her at all. Her calmness felt wrong, too perfect, too practiced. My voice came out barely above a whisper. "You were listening." She tilted her head slightly. "I was always listening, Olivia." Ethan stepped forward. "Mom, don't." But she didn't even look at him. Her eyes stayed on me, like I was the only thing in the room that mattered. "I told you not to dig," she said softly. My stomach tightened. "You said I was destroying your son's life," I snapped. A bitter laugh escaped me. "I think you did that yourself." Something flickered across her face. Not anger, not guilt. Something closer to disappointment, like I had failed a test she expected me to pass. "You still don't understand," she said. I stepped closer. "Then make me understand." Silence. Then she walked into the room, slowly. Like she was entering her own memory, not my nightmare. Her eyes passed over the tapes, the folder, the scattered pages, then finally Ethan. "You weren't supposed to bring her here," she said to him. Ethan clenched his jaw. "I didn't bring her anywhere. She found everything." Margaret nodded once. "As expected." That word hit me wrong. Expected. Like I was not a person in her story, just a predictable outcome. My hands shook. "You knew this would happen." She finally looked at me fully. For the first time, I saw something underneath her calm expression. Not fear, not panic, control, pure control. "Yes," she said simply. My throat went dry. "Then why let me get this far?" She took one step closer. "Because truth doesn't become dangerous until it is complete." Ethan's voice broke through. "Mom, stop." But she raised her hand slightly, and he stopped just like that, years of control in a single gesture. My chest tightened. This wasn't a conversation. It was a system. When I had been inside without realizing, I whispered, "You took my sister." A pause, then she nodded. "I raised her." My heart slammed. "Raised her," I repeated. Her voice stayed steady. "She would have died otherwise." Ethan turned sharply. "That's not what you said." Margaret finally looked at him. "And what did I say, Ethan?" His silence answered her. She turned back to me. "You think Richard Bennett was a victim in all of this?" she asked softly. I flinched. "He stole her from my father." Margaret shook her head. "No." One word, sharp, clean, final. My mind struggled. "What do you mean no?" She stepped closer. "Richard didn't take Amelia first." A pause. "Your father did." The world tilted again. I actually stumbled back. "That's impossible." Ethan looked at me quickly. "Olivia," but I couldn't hear him. I couldn't hear anything except my own heartbeat. Margaret continued. "Your father discovered what would happen if Amelia stayed in the system she was born into." I shook my head. "You're lying." Her expression didn't change. "Your father was not the man you think he was." Anger exploded inside me. "Don't you dare rewrite him." Her eyes sharpened slightly. "I'm not rewriting him." A pause. "I'm completing him." The words didn't make sense, but they felt intentional, carefully chosen, like she had said them before. I looked at Ethan. "Tell me she's lying." Ethan hesitated. That hesitation again, that betrayal without words. My chest cracked. "You knew." I whispered. He looked down. "I didn't know everything." My voice broke. "But you knew something." Silence. Margaret walked past him, picked up one of the cassette tapes, turned it in her hand. "Your father was trying to protect Amelia from being used as leverage in a conflict he started long before you were born." My breathing became uneven. "What conflict?" She looked at me. "Your family was never innocent, Olivia." The words landed harder than anything before. I shook my head. "No." "My father was good." Margaret's voice softened. "Good people don't bury children in secrets for protection." Ethan stepped forward again. "This is going too far." But Margaret didn't even acknowledge him. She kept her eyes on me. "Amelia wasn't kidnapped to hurt you," she said quietly. "She was hidden because both families were collapsing under what she represented." My voice trembled. "And what did she represent?" A pause. Then Margaret said, "The truth that you were not the only child meant to inherit everything." My breath stopped. "What?" Ethan looked confused now. "Mom," but she raised her hand again, and he stopped again. She turned slightly toward him. "You were never told the full structure of the inheritance because Richard feared what would happen if you knew." My head spun. "What inheritance?" I shouted. Margaret finally looked directly at me again. "The Bennett legacy is not just money," she said. It's control over the trust your father built with Richard's family. My voice cracked. This is insane. She nodded slightly. Yes, a pause, it is. That admission froze me because she wasn't denying it. She was owning it. I stepped forward again. So where does Amelia fit in all of this? Margaret's eyes softened just a fraction. She was the only person legally tied to both sides of the trust structure. My stomach dropped. And if she existed openly, Ethan finished quietly. She could override everything. Silence again. The pieces shifted violently in my mind. Amelia wasn't just a missing sister. She was power, a key, a threat, a living clause in a system built by adults who never wanted children involved. I whispered, so you took her to prevent a legal war. Margaret didn't deny it. She just said, I protected what was left. My hands clenched. That's not protection. Her voice sharpened slightly. It is when the alternative is destruction. Ethan looked torn now, like he was hearing this version of the story for the first time too, but I couldn't care, not anymore. I stepped closer to Margaret until I was shaking. You don't get to decide that, I said. You don't get to take a child and call it protection. For the first time, something cracked in her expression, just slightly. My intention was never cruelty, she said, but I didn't believe her anymore, not even a little. Then I said the question that had been burning inside me since the tapes. What about the recording? Her eyes flicked briefly toward the cassette player, then back to me, and for the first time she looked uncertain, not afraid, but careful. Your father recorded what he believed, she said, but he didn't see everything. Ethan stepped forward. What are you not saying? Margaret didn't answer him. She looked at me again. And then she said quietly, because Olivia, a pause. Worst part of this story is not who took Amelia. My heart pounded. It's why she's coming back now. The room went silent again. And then my phone rang, same unknown number. My hands shook as I answered. Amelia, a breath, but it wasn't her voice this time. It was a man, calm, controlled, familiar in a way that made my skin crawl. Hello, Olivia. My blood ran cold, because I recognized that voice instantly, even though I had never met him. And he said, you finally found the truth. A pause, but not all of it. I couldn't speak. Behind me, Margaret went completely still. Ethan whispered, no. And the man on the phone continued softly, tell me, did she explain what happens next? The call ended. And in that silence, I realized something terrifying. The story wasn't over. It had only been preparing me for the final chapter. The silence after the call felt different. Not empty, not heavy, final, like something had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. I stared at my phone until the screen dimmed. The voice was still inside my head. Calm, controlled, familiar in a way I couldn't explain. Did she explain what happens next? Behind me, Margaret didn't move. Ethan didn't breathe. And I just stood there holding the last thread of a life I thought I understood. Then I whispered, who was that? Margaret finally spoke, and her voice wasn't strong anymore. It was tired. That was the man I hoped you would never speak to. Ethan looked at her sharply. Mom, but she raised her hand slowly. No more hiding, she said, her eyes moved to me. If this ends, it ends fully. My chest tightened. What did he mean, what happens next? Margaret walked toward the table, picked up the cassette tape, turned it over in her hands, then she said something that changed everything. The recording you heard was not the complete truth. My stomach dropped. Ethan stepped forward. What are you talking about? Margaret looked at him. Your father edited what he left behind. A pause. To protect you. I felt my voice shake. Protect him from what? Margaret turned to me fully. From the truth that Olivia was never meant to inherit anything at all. The room went still. I shook my head. No, that's not possible. But she nodded. It is. Her voice softened. And neither was Amelia. My breath stopped. What do you mean? Margaret stepped closer. Amelia was never a missing sister. My heart began to pound. She was a safeguard. Ethan whispered. A safeguard for what? Margaret looked at both of us. For the truth buried inside your father's estate. The room felt like it was closing in. My hands were shaking again. Stop speaking in riddles, I said. Margaret exhaled slowly. Then I'll speak plainly. She pointed at me. Olivia, you are not just his daughter. A pause. You are the only surviving link to a sealed trust that controls everything Richard Bennett built before he died. My mind spun. That's not true. It is, she said, and Amelia was created as leverage. Ethan froze. Created. Margaret nodded once. Not biologically. My heart dropped. Then what are you saying? Her voice became quieter. Adopted into a false identity, placed into a system that ensured no single person could access the full inheritance structure. I stepped back. This is insane. But Ethan wasn't arguing anymore. He was just listening, like pieces were finally clicking into place for him too. Margaret continued. Your father discovered the structure was dangerous, that it required both of you both identities to unlock it. I whispered, both of us, she nodded. And Richard wanted it gone entirely. A pause. So he took Amelia. My chest tightened. And you protected her. Margaret closed her eyes briefly. I removed her from the equation before others could use her. Ethan's voice broke. So she wasn't kidnapped. Margaret shook her head. She was hidden. Silence fell again, but this time it wasn't confusion. It was understanding that felt worse than confusion. I looked at Ethan, then Margaret, then the empty space between them where years of lies had lived. And what about you? I asked Ethan quietly, his jaw tightened. I didn't know everything, he said again, but this time it sounded smaller, less certain. I nodded slowly. So I was married into a war I didn't know existed. No one answered. That was answer enough. Then a sound came from outside the apartment. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Ethan turned sharply. No one was supposed to come here. Margaret went still. And for the first time, I saw fear in her face, real fear. The door opened, and a man stepped inside. I recognized him instantly, not from memory, from consequence. The same calm voice, the same control, the same presence that didn't feel like it belonged in chaos. The man from the phone. He looked at me and smiled slightly. Hello, Olivia. My throat went dry. Ethan whispered, you shouldn't be here. The man nodded. I know. Then he looked at Margaret, and neither should she have hidden it this long. Margaret's voice was sharp now. This ends tonight. He shook his head. No, a pause. It begins tonight. My heart hammered. What are you talking about? I demanded. The man stepped closer, and when he spoke, his voice was calm enough to terrify me. You've all been trying to solve a story your father designed to protect you from the truth. He looked at me directly. But the truth was never about inheritance. My breath caught. Then what is it about? A long silence. Then he said, it's about identity. Ethan stepped forward. What does that mean? The man finally answered. Olivia Bennett doesn't exist in the way you think she does. My entire body went cold. Margaret closed her eyes like she already knew this moment was coming. The man continued. Your father didn't just leave you an inheritance. A pause. He left you a choice. My voice shook. What choice? He looked at me and said quietly, to keep your identity or erase it and save everyone else from what comes next. Silence. Ethan looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time again. Margaret whispered, it's true. My knees weakened. No, I said, I am Olivia Bennett. The man nodded slowly. For now. Then he added the final truth. But Amelia is not your sister. The room froze. Ethan whispered, what? The man looked at him. She was never your sister. A pause. She was the original Olivia. My world collapsed instantly. My breath stopped. My vision blurred. No sound made sense anymore. The man's voice continued, distant now, like it was coming from another life. Your father created a second identity to protect the real heir. One of them had to disappear for the system to survive. I stumbled back. No, Margaret looked at me with something like sorrow now. I tried to stop this, she whispered, but I couldn't hear her because everything finally clicked. The letters, the warnings. The photograph, the truth. Amelia wasn't my missing sister. She was the life I was meant to protect. And I was the version that replaced her. My voice broke. So I was never searching for her. A pause. I was searching for myself. The man nodded. Yes. Silence filled everything. Ethan stepped toward me. Olivia, but I stepped back because I didn't know who he was looking at anymore. The man turned toward the door. You have one choice left, he said. Accept the truth. Or let both identities collapse and destroy everything your father built to protect you. He paused, then added softly, and both of you will be erased from the system forever. He walked out, and the door closed, leaving only silence. Ethan looked at me. Margaret looked at me, and I finally understood the weight of everything. Love, family, truth, identity. All of it had been built on something I never agreed to. I whispered, I don't know who I am anymore. Ethan stepped closer. You're Olivia, he said, but even he didn't sound sure anymore. And in that moment, for the first time in my life, I didn't cry because I was broken. I cried because I finally understood. The truth doesn't just destroy lies. Sometimes it erases the person you thought you were. And as the night swallowed everything around me, I realized the hardest part wasn't finding the truth. It was deciding whether I wanted to survive it. And if this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment. Tell me about the door that opened for you. Hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.